Your time is 7:14 on this busy Saturday morning. We continue to cover the devastating wildfires affecting Southern California. Now, people aren't the only ones affected by these fires.
That's right. Hundreds of people have come together at Pasadena Humane Society. Hundreds of our four-legged friends have been impacted by these fires. Kevin McManus from Pasadena Humane is joining us now on Zoom. Kevin, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
We understand that the shelter has taken in more than 300 animals in the past few days. Please walk us through what these past few days have been like for you guys.
Well, I actually just got some updated numbers, and it's closer to 450 at this point, which is it's devastating. We're getting, as Kara just mentioned in the last bit, we do the animal control and care for Altadena. So many pets have come from Altadena who've been displaced. Their families cannot go back home, so we're caring for their pets. So it's been quite a burden, but it's something that we're happy to provide for the community.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you so much for taking on that burden. So important. We've seen some heartbreaking images. Can you describe for us maybe the conditions of some of the animals that are being brought in?
Well, so we've had, kind of two waves. The first wave was people who were able to bring their pets in so if they had to evacuate and they brought their pets and had nowhere to go, we took those animals in. And those animals are in pretty good shape, other than, being stressed, and not being home with the people who love them, their family. The second wave has been the stray animals, and that's where we're seeing much more difficult or more injuries, a lot of burn victims, a lot of smoke inhalation. So the images you're seeing are some of our amazing veterinarians and vet techs treating those animals who've just come in from the field. That poor kitty has, burns on his pads. And of course, we've got wildlife coming in as well.
Absolutely. Oh, I was seeing on Instagram the white dog you just showed that had some burns on his paws and face. Just an image of the devastation from this fire. Okay, so a lot of people have been separated from their pets. We want to know, how can they tell if Pasadena Humane is caring for their animal? Maybe they got separated, they're not sure where they are, and you've picked up the pet. Where can people check to see if you have their pet?
Well, the great thing is we are getting photos of all of the stray animals that come in, and those are updated to our website within an hour. So PasadenaHumane.org, and there's a link for look for I lost a pet. And so that will take you to kind of photos of all of the animals that are here who we don't know the owner of. That white dog is one of those, the husky. He came in a couple days ago. We don't know that his owners know he's here.
Yeah, I hope someone out there can help find his owner. And Kevin, you've been accepting donations, but at the moment you aren't in need of any additional supplies. So how can people help?
Well, the easiest and most effective and most direct way to help the animals in our care is through a financial donation. Again, can be made on our website. You're seeing the outpouring, you're seeing a fraction of the outpouring of support that's come in over the last couple of days of goods. So we're at a point where we literally cannot take any more because we don't have anywhere to store the outpouring of love that we've received. So that's such a good problem to have. And I know people want to do something. So financial is kind of the easiest and most direct. And if you do have in-kind gifts that you want to donate to us, we are, of course, going to still accept them. And we have some places set up today and tomorrow, I believe. Those are the things that we're updating kind of as we find places that allow us to have some space to take them in. But I also ask, we will continue to need that material going forward, but we just ask if you can check back in a week or a couple of weeks, because that's when the inventory that we have already accumulated will start to dwindle.
And Kevin, before we let you go, I know you guys help animals through all kinds of disasters. We know this is going to turn out to be one of the costliest wildfires in California history. How does this compare to other disasters you've seen and had to help animals through, as far as the condition of the animals and how many you're getting in?
This is by far the
good news. These spot fires that we seem to see out here over on the hillside seem to be smaller, but they are still pretty consistently spread out throughout the area here. Want to get to some video now and show you what it looked like when Air 7 was overhead last night. Take a look. You can see those flames there on the ridgeline. We also want to show you some video of the moment that firefighters were forced to retreat as the flames inched closer to them, even leaving behind some equipment at one point in order for them to get to safety. So as you can tell, the firefight far from over. More than 21,000 acres have burned. We got an update here that the fire is 11% contained, so a little bit of progress there, but of course a lot of people still concerned and still, ready to go at a moment's notice because of the fire. It could always move in different directions. Now, good news is this morning, the wind isn't that strong, right? Compared to a few days ago, it's dramatically different. So as we come back out here live, you're getting another look. Excuse me, there are still plenty of hot spots here just on the other side of Mandeville Canyon, but good news is we haven't seen it move closer toward this area. Right in front of us, again, we're on Canyon Back Road. There are a bunch of homes. So these are the people that overnight were really coming over here and standing where we were, looking off into the distance and really hoping that those flames weren't going forward. And right now it seems like things are in a good place, but of course things could change. So we're going to continue to be out here and keep a close eye on this. And we know that we are expecting an update from officials coming up at 8 o'clock this morning. For now, live near Mandeville Canyon, Monica de Anda, back to you guys.
And Monica, before you go, I'm looking here at the map and reminding our viewers, I mentioned this during our 5 a.m. hour when you were on the scene there. You were our first reporter on the scene of this fire on Tuesday around 11 a.m. At that time, you were closer to Pacific Palisades. And correct me if I'm wrong, at that time, the fire was burning essentially the opposite direction. This is further to the east, the way that this fire has expanded basically in both directions and was never even in this area, of course, before, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And that's something that's really stood out, right, to all of us, and just how this fire has shifted with the wind and with different conditions that we've seen over the last few days, because where we were at on Tuesday was over there in Palisades off of Sunset Boulevard and Cary. That was my first spot when I first showed up to the scene. So really a lot of change. We know 21,000 acres and it's continuing to expand. So keeping a close eye, but that's why a lot of people really, they've continuing to just follow this very closely, because you think you're in the clear and the next thing you know, like I said, a lot of people in Encino, they were like, whoa, what's going on last night when they got that evacuation warning.
We've been mentioning that all morning, is that how dynamic these wildfires really can be. When you see those wind speeds and those flames die down, it doesn't necessarily mean that the fire is over or that it's in the clear, because things can change very quickly. I do want to ask you, Monica, as you've been covering this fire for the past couple of days, I mean, let's talk about wind speeds. Today, Niku has been mentioning that we are seeing a bit of a break in those harsh winds. Are you really feeling a difference there from where you are on the ground? A bit of a break in those harsh winds.
Yeah, Irene, that's a really good point, right? Because I know that you were also out here on the ground a few days ago and we could really feel those winds. They were playing a huge role. We saw embers flying at one point, and that is not the case today. Firefighters really getting a chance to make some good progress today. We know that the wind speeds are going to remain kind of favorable for most of the day, so that is encouraging. That's really helping right now firefighters be able to make some progress here, hopefully.
And in terms of those embers, I mean, you mentioned that as well. When those winds kick up, you can visibly see them shoot up into the sky and sometimes arc and catch onto brush or trees. What are you seeing from your vantage point in terms of embers?
Well, right here where we're located, there are no embers in the air, not even any ashes that we're seeing come down. So that's encouraging for this area, but I know that it's different across different places, right? Closer to Palisades, when I was there yesterday, or 2 days ago, excuse me, there were a lot of ash coming down, and those embers were still kind of jumping around, and that's why neighbors who were living in that area were watching, concerned, trying to make sure it didn't spread to their home. But today, where we're at our vantage point here off of Mandeville Canyon, it's looking good so far. No ash and no embers flying, so that's good news.
Okay, Monica, thank you. Hang tight as we continue here with this extended coverage. Again, we have broken into Good Morning America because of this new increased risk impacting the Brentwood area. We'll get back to you. In the meantime, we do want to check on the weather forecast, the winds, and what may be fueling some of this, and what is next. Nico Kazori is in for Tony this morning. And Nico, this is certainly concerning.
Absolutely, especially because it's just such a fluid situation. We were looking at those winds a little bit earlier. Yeah, they are calm, and the wind speeds, though, they've kind of shifted from that northeasterly wind direction to now more of a southerly flow. We have those southeasterly winds, and that really could be a reason why we saw from Air 7 why the fire has shifted further, and it's moving with that south direction. Right now, though, the wind speeds, they are calm, so the firefighters, I'm glad they do have this opportunity to get a good handle on that fire. We are seeing wind speeds in that Brentwood, Mandeville Canyon area anywhere between 5 to 10 to maybe even 15 miles per hour at times. But still, that's much better than the conditions that we were dealing with these last few days. So this is the time that the firefighters can really get a good grip on fighting this fire that has now turned more with that southerly direction. So we were looking, you can see even the helicopters. There's a lot of fight when it comes to the ground and the air. And I'm glad that they have this window from now until at least early this afternoon to really fight those flames. And you can see as we go through the wind forecast, so this is a look at around today from this morning until this afternoon, the wind speeds, they're going to remain fairly calm, anywhere from the single digits to the teens. So that really gives the firefighters a good chance to fight those flames. But as we head into this evening, though, I'm really glad, especially with this recent flare up, I'm glad that we're not going to be seeing, we're not right now, we're not seeing those wind speeds that we're going to be seeing later this evening, because this evening we're going to start seeing those wind speeds start to pick up. And as we ramp up into the evening and overnight hours, we're going to see another round of those gusty northeasterly winds. We can see those wind speeds anywhere between 20 to 50 miles per hour possible at times as we head into Sunday morning. Here's a look at around Sunday, 2 in the morning. This is what we don't like to see. We don't like to see those oranges, the reds, the purple. That's not a good sign with those intense wind speeds. Again, not as intense as what we saw these last few days, but definitely breezier than what we are dealing with this morning. It makes it difficult for those firefighters to really get a good handle on the fire. So let's hope there's no breakouts later this evening or any spot fires, because the conditions tonight not favorable for fighting those fires. But as we head into Sunday, though, here's a look, a little bit of relief. Sunday morning, the wind speeds back to where they should be, at least as far as calm levels go. So again, we're going to be seeing those wind speeds tomorrow anywhere. It's going to be in the teens from 10 to 15 miles per hour, at least in the morning. And it should stay relatively calm. We could see a random wind gust anywhere between 20 to 30 miles per hour throughout the day tomorrow. But as we head into Monday is going to be when we have another chance, another round of those Santa Ana winds coming our way. And with those, that next chance of those Santa Ana winds, we can see those wind speeds anywhere between 20 to 40 miles per hour. You can see those reds, the oranges, the purples return back into our forecast. Pacific Palisades right now, though, the wind speeds, they're looking okay. So decent time for the firefighters to get a good handle on this fire there. But air quality definitely starting to, those red zones definitely starting to increase compared to what we looked at just about an hour ago. The red spots really weren't this big, but now, especially with these flare-ups and more spot fires, we are starting to see that air quality start to kind of just get more affected by that. That's why we have more of those unhealthy zones. So definitely keeping our eyes on these wind speeds, the wind direction especially too, because like I said, from this morning, we went from more of a northeasterly flow where it kind of helped. The fire was going more toward the sky. It was going more northerly, but now it's moved toward that southerly direction. So Mark and Irene, definitely something that we will be keeping our eyes on. Like I said, at least the wind speeds, though, they're in the single to teens, but anywhere between 5 to maximum 15 miles per hour this morning. And that really helps.
Absolutely. That being said, Niku, thank you. Increased concern right now. Let's go back to Marcel Melanson. He is in Air 7. He is our Air 7 photographer, typically in the helicopter with Scott Reif Monday through Friday. And Marcel, this is getting closer. I got to estimate that is what, maybe 100 yards from that top home here in the Brentwood area. Oh my goodness. I got to estimate that is what, maybe a...
Yes, Mark. This is the Westwidge community in Brentwood, and you're exactly correct. You're less than 100 feet or so, 200 feet. But one thing I could say, the fire department is here. They are poised. They are ready. They have strike teams in place in this whole community. They knew this fire was coming this way. They're ahead of it, and my expectations are they're going to put up a big firefight here. We are going to witness many homes that are going to be saved because of their preparations. Like we talked about earlier, we're very, very lucky. This is not a wind-fueled fire. This is more of a topography-fueled fire or a terrain-driven fire. So it's moving a lot slower today than we've seen over the past week, and that is the one benefit. So we are going to see it. We're at ground zero right now. And let me just back out to give you some more perspective. That's the West Ridge community again. That's the end of Sullivan Canyon next to Mandeville Canyon. And so you're looking, that is kind of, if you're in Westwood and if you're in Brentwood and you're looking up towards the canyons in between Encino and actually Brentwood, those are the two major canyons that run through here. Here's the Getty Center down to my bottom left here. And so you could see there was some concern of the fire. And Mark, you asked me earlier, how far are we from the 405? And from when we last talked, the fire's moved a bit, but you could see it's still not blowing through the canyon like they experienced on Tuesday. And that is something to be grateful for. We're not out of harm's way. If you're in Brentwood, please, the ready, set, go, now is time to go.
Absolutely, Marcel. You can tell just from how the smoke is sitting. It's sitting more upright rather than blowing across the area. So we're not seeing as gusty of a pattern as we were a few days ago. But still, how close that fire is to that neighborhood, showing extreme concern. We are glad to see those firefighters on the back of that property, lining that street there, so they are prepared. But man, if this fire moves to this neighborhood, it would not be good for thousands of homes there. So we're really hoping that they can handle this. I mean, just a few minutes ago, the flames were sitting on top of the hill, and it has definitely moved down into that canyon just within a matter of minutes. So it is inching closer and closer to those homes. But it really is concerning to see how close it has gotten to those homes within the past hour.
Yeah, and Marcel, tell us if you can, from your vantage point, the water drops that we're seeing. I've seen a helicopter go by a couple minutes ago. Are there a lot of resources in place? What's happening?
I think I've counted about 4 or 5 water dropping helicopters, both Type 1 and Type 2. Those are capable of, up to some of the Type 1 helicopters, the Chinooks that we saw passing by. Those are capable of delivering up to 3,000 gallons. Typically, the LA City runs an Augusta 139. They drop about 480 gallons. And I've seen them doing continuous drops on the head of this fire all throughout the night, and definitely throughout the morning. One thing is you don't get fixed-wing aircraft at night just because of the danger of that. But now that it's daybreak, they have requested a number of fixed-wing aircraft for immediate need. And so any aircraft that's in Southern California area that's available, this is going to be the priority fire, and they're going to be headed this way. They're going to request some additional help from helicopters that are close by and get as many of those high-capacity water droppers possible so that they can knock the head of this fire down and protect this Westgate community in Brentwood.
And for those of you who are just joining us, these flames, you're taking a look at flames very close to this Brentwood neighborhood. And Marcel has been monitoring all of this from overnight as well as this morning. Right now, we're taking a look at an isolated spot fire here. What we've been seeing this morning is those embers catching onto that dry brush and causing these isolated incidents. So very troubling there in terms of that being in the middle of the neighborhood, still in the hilly area. But
this is what you worry about. It's spotting out in front of itself now. And so this has been the priority where they've called any water dropping helicopter they have on scene right now. They're going to try to knock this spot down that's ahead of it so it doesn't get established and they're able to focus on the flaming front.
Yeah, that's really concerning. Now, that being said, here it comes. Maybe this will be a water dropper. Obviously, they're aware of it. Spots like that, is it the wind that did that, or simply, the fact, because now it's kind of surrounding that whole neighborhood.
Right. You're definitely right, Mark. This is a wind, even though the wind is light as far as what we're talking about as a prescriptive measure. Yeah, but now we're at a point where the fire begins to make its own weather.
Right.
And the fire is going to make its own wind. And you notice that by looking at the plume of smoke. The plume of smoke is bent over. It's not going straight up as it gets into the actual atmosphere. And that's a good indicator that if it's going in that direction, that it's creating its own wind. And that being said, creating its own wind, it'll tend to spot out of ahead of itself, especially when you're dealing with flashy fuels like we see here.
And now,
so this will be a priority. You saw an LA County Fire helicopter that was capable of over 1,000 gallons of water that they're going to probably drop on this spot.
As we look at this and as we watch this with you real time, for our viewers watching this morning, there's so much concern all across the area. The other concern was the north end of this in the San Fernando Valley for people like Encino. I know you can't see that side completely right now.
Let me show it to you, Mark. This is Encino.
Set the stage for us. Like, how concerned should those people be? That's much reduced, right?
When you're in this state, I would say don't drop your guard. If you've evacuated, don't go back home, because we've all heard these stories. Wildfires are not predictable. They could be going south and the next minute turn north, right? So just because it is pointing the other direction, because look at just last night, Encino was threatened. Everybody, this is where the priority was, that everybody was worried that Encino was going to be impacted, and here we are almost 12 hours later, and now the fire has completely changed directions, and now here we are at this Westgate community in Brentwood. And you can see this particular community has canyons on either side of it, and now it is starting to engulf this community on both sides. We noticed that spot fire earlier on the west side of the community, as well as on the east side of the community, you'll see. But I will point out, Mark, we've been watching this for a while, and let's just look at the rate of spread. It's not tremendously super fast, but it's still concerning.
Yeah, it's still inching closer towards that neighborhood, and we hadn't seen that fire move behind the homes, behind that community earlier, and now it seems to be spreading that way in terms of spot fires. Can you talk about the spot fires that you've seen throughout this morning, as well as instances like the fire whirls or the fire tornadoes that have been cropping up this morning?
Yes. Whenever you're dealing with a fire in this type of vegetation, which meaning the type of plants that are burning, we're dealing with a lot of native plants here, chaparral and chamise, which are referred to by the fire department as light flashy fuels or moderate fuels. Those types of fuels, when they're burning, they tend to burn very hot. When they're burning very hot, you'll see a column of smoke that'll go straight up. It'll be dark. It'll be very ominous, and that will in tune create its own fire weather when it gets hot enough. When that fire weather gets hot enough, you start to see erratic fire behavior. That erratic fire behavior is noticed when you have these little tornadoes people see. Oh, it's a fire-nado or a smoke-nado. Those little tornadoes are a good indicator that we're dealing with some erratic fire behavior that has the potential to swirl up that heat and that vortex and spit those embers out in front of itself. So perfect example right here, this little spot fire down canyon, it doesn't have any connection with the main head of the fire. However, some embers were spit above and forward of the fire, and now it's creating. And that's how a fire advances in most of these cases. Last night, we were well into where the fire had not advanced into Sullivan Canyon. Now, not only do we have the fire well established in Sullivan Canyon, but we also, I'm going to take a quick break here. This is a 3,000 gallon air tanker. This is a tanker that's coming in to save the day here. They're going to drop 3,000 gallons of water on the head of this fire. And just tremendous to see that these resources are available. This one's actually based out of Van Nuys. And there you go. Boom, 3,000 gallons dropped at the head of the fire, trying to stop that momentum of the flaming front.
What a godsend, absolutely. That being said, have you seen that chopper yet this morning, or is that the first drop that you've seen?
That's the first drop I seen from that chopper this morning. That helicopter, I was actually surprised to see it just now. It was up working night operations all night last night. So just to give you some semblance of how serious this is, they woke that crew up, got a new crew, got it staffed, and got it out here immediately, because we're dealing with that serious of a situation here where we need immediate resources. We need them right now because, as you can see, that small spot fire we were looking at earlier, here it is. It's starting to establish itself a little bit just alongside of these structures here. And very well, you'll probably see the next drop will probably be on the spot if it begins to take hold.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that that's going to be a priority for them next. But how phenomenal to see those water resources being used in real time, and we watch those flames, those active flames, just dissipate as soon as those 3,000 gallons hit them. So we're taking a look at the chopper, seeing what they do next, and we also, Marcel, have firefighters who are poised right on the fire line in terms of the backyards of those homes, just in case those flames start to make their way onto the property. But they are ready and they're poised. It looks like they're also on the street there as well behind those homes. So they are ready to go just in case something happens.
And this is where all the importance of your preparation comes in. If you have prepped your home for wildfires, and you would anticipate that, or I would go out on a limb to say these individuals that live in the canyons of Southern California, they are actually probably the most, they're the most ready for a thing like this. And when you talk about prepping your home and getting it ready, having some defensible space, having some non-flammable vegetation that is alongside your home to slow the fire down, that's going to be where the true test is, and that's going to be make the difference between firefighters being able to save your home and your home being lost. It's all in the preparation. And if these homes are prepared like most of the fire department has indicated or asked them to do, we're going to see a valiant firefighting effort. And after this flaming front passes, you'll see many of these homes still standing because of that preparation.
We sure hope so. And I believe from the notes that I've seen, if I'm correct, this specific area was under an evacuation warning, but around 7 p.m. last night, I believe that this area became mandatory. That being said, from your vantage point, you haven't seen like any additional like cars leaving or any kind of panic. It seems to be cleared out, right? Or do you see any backlog on the street below? Any signs of that situation?
Mark, I do not. I was looking for that. After the tragedy that happened on Tuesday where people panicked, they didn't have the time, they got out last minute. I mean, the images of the bulldozers clearing cars out of the way so that they could make room for fire department personnel, and people feeling the despair that they jumped out of their cars and actually ran because they felt like they didn't have any other option. I couldn't imagine being in that situation. What we see, like you said, this area here was under a mandatory evacuation, and at this time, it looks like many people, I see desolate streets. All I see is firemen. Every street that I turn on, I see strike teams that are positioned to make this structure. This is the Westgate Structure Protection Group is a group of individuals that they've set aside to just fight this fire in Westgate. So there's a number of resources. I've counted at least maybe 10, maybe 20 strike teams, and a strike team consists of 5 engine companies and a chief officer. So I'm saying at least 20 strike teams. Those are made up of 5 engine companies each in this Westgate community that are poised and ready to go to battle. This is it. This is game time. They're ready to go. And like I said, it's all going to determine on how people prepared and gave those firefighters the opportunity. Here's another street, Mark. Not a car driving anywhere.
Well, that's good to see. Meantime, live on our screen on the right, you can see the view from LAX, which just gives you the impact of what many of you from a distance are seeing this morning. Marcel, since we came on air here at, I think, roughly 7:10 or so, 7:15, we broke into Good Morning America. At least now, first of all, the flames are closer to that neighborhood. The smoke now overcoming it really is concerning. Maybe 5 minutes ago, there was a larger flare-up behind one of those homes. Has that dissipated? Can you even tell now through the smoke how big the flare-up or the spot fire was? I think it was to the right. It was to the right of this one. It's kind of shrouded now in the dark.
I think this is it, and I think it's still there. they're keeping an eye on it. I heard them talking about it on the radio, so forgive me if I take a moment here and there. I'm actually listening to the fire department communications as I'm talking to you guys, and so I'm hearing that branch say they see the spot fire. They've requested a aerial drop when available, but the main focus right now is the flaming front. And you see came into our screen there was one of the actual firefighting helicopters that is out of LA County. This is a master mutual aid event where you'll see firemen and equipment coming from all over the state of California, and their priority right now is to stop this flaming front from hitting Westgate. So they're doing active drops in Sullivan Canyon and in Mandeville Canyon.
But it certainly is a reminder of how firefighting crews are dealing with these fires from multiple vantage points. You know, they're not just fighting a fire on a fire line. Sometimes those flames can spread behind a community, to the side of a community, and they have to take care of multiple different incidents at the same time. So it is a lot to handle. Marcel, thank you. In the meantime, we do have our reporter on the ground from our sister station in San Francisco, Zach Fuentes. He is now live in Brentwood. And Zach, we want to ask you, what are you seeing from your vantage point this morning?
Yeah, so we're at Sunset Boulevard and Mandeville Canyon Road. You can't quite see the smoke or any flames from this, but what we can see is the response and the impact, some real-time impacts that are happening on people. You can see that smoke there. As we were going around this corner here, though, you could definitely see more of the impact. You could see where it was behind the mountainside. That's not quite what we can see from this vantage point, but just moments ago, we saw National Guard coming through here. We saw CAL FIRE trucks going through this intersection, and they continue at different intervals to go up and down Mandeville Canyon Road here at Sunset Boulevard. If you're looking here now, this is a line of cars of people waiting to get in. Now, many people had been evacuated and are trying to come back in. Actually, this man you see crossing the street right now, I talked to him a second ago, and he says that he's been desperate since last night to try and get back to his house to try and get his son's medication. He said when he came back here yesterday, there was such a long line of cars that he couldn't make it in. He thought maybe he can make it today, but so far he's having a big struggle with that, and you see him just trying to walk in and see what he can do, talking to law enforcement there. And what we're hearing police tell people is that they need to wait. They can't get in yet. Last I heard was that maybe at 8 a.m. they would start to let in 2 cars at a time with an escort in. But again, this is a dynamic situation right now, a lot going on, and they're still working on this response, working to see how to handle all of this. And of course, then let people in, because we've been hearing the fire officials saying over and over again, they're protecting lives. That is a priority, and then everything else. But we are again seeing these real life impacts right now as people are just waiting to get in, waiting to find out, status of their home, number one, and then just to see what else they can get from their homes. As we were driving up the hill, we went up into some very mountainous areas, and you could see some of the aftermath of the fires that have come through here and some of the damage in the homes that had been leveled. We don't quite see that down here at this time, so I don't want to worry anybody who lives right near this intersection, but we definitely see the smoke over there. We're seeing the response. We're seeing the CAL FIRE trucks come through. Again, we just saw the National Guard coming through this intersection, and we heard some people driving by right now saying that the checkpoint now that they're being stopped at, this is further back than where it was yesterday. So again, because things are changing so much, folks are confused, and folks are just wondering and desperate to get answers, which we're trying our best to bring, but there's not always so many answers to have as law enforcement, as first responders, firefighters continue to try to figure out the situation here too. So again, that's what we're seeing at this intersection. We're at Sunset Boulevard, Mandeville Canyon Road. Dynamic situation, a lot of things changing, a lot of things happening. Police trying to stay on top of people driving through. You're going to see this police car right now coming after this car here. Yeah, you see the parking enforcement officer there stopping them because people are not allowed to go past this point. We saw that line of cars just a second ago. They're all waiting their turn, and there are some people, I guess, trying to cut the line here, just, desperate to get through. But again, law enforcement says that they're focused on the safety of people first, and they're not letting people through at this point, at this intersection right here, even though people are desperate to get through right now. So that's what we're seeing here on the ground. I'm going to start to send it back to you guys as we continue to look at what's happening here, as we continue to monitor all of the changes that we're seeing at this particular intersection. But again, that smoke very close behind this tree canopy here.
Yeah. What a difference from earlier in the morning. You were in Encino on the other side, the valley side of this fire, and this certainly looks even more ominous as far as the distance, to properties. Okay, Zach, thank you. Stand by. We'll continue with you throughout our special coverage. But let's go to Niku Kazori for, again, a check of the conditions, the winds that we're seeing. Again, Marcel in the helicopter was telling us that, yeah, comparatively not terrible winds, but it still is breezing and maybe even creating kind of its own weather situation.
Absolutely. I like what Marcel said. When you have these erratic fires like that, and I like seeing that drop as well, because right now it's perfect conditions for those firefighters to be able to get a good grip on these fires when we have these wind speeds that are relatively low right now. We're seeing some wind speeds in the single digits, so anywhere between 5 to 10 miles per hour. But yeah, when you have these erratic fires like that, they do tend to create their own weather systems regardless of the wind speed and the wind direction. But it looks like right now the wind direction is south-southwesterly. So we are looking at another view right now you can see live what that firefight is looking like. And with these light wind speeds, things are looking great for those firefighters. So this is that window that they have to really get a good grip on those flames right now. And you can see those wind speeds, again, anywhere right now between 7 to about 15 miles per hour. And I'm not really expecting it to get breezier than this morning. You can see the futurecast as we go through the morning hours into the early afternoon. Things are still looking okay. They're still looking great for those firefighters. These are favorable conditions for them to really get a good grip on these fires. But as we head into this evening, that's when I'm a little concerned. I'm glad that right now we are not seeing those wind speeds that we're expecting to see later this evening, because this evening things are really going to start to kick up. We can see those wind speeds go back into that 25 to 40 mile per hour range. And it's going to be sticking with us as we head into the evening hours, heading into Sunday morning. So I paused it. You can see around Sunday 2, 3 in the morning. That's when we expect those wind speeds to really start to kick up. When you start to see some orange, red, purple on the map, that's not a good sign. And those wind speeds, those stronger wind speeds, those northeasterly Santa Ana winds, they're going to be sticking with us overnight as we head into Sunday. So really keeping our eyes on the wind speed, the wind direction, especially overnight into Sunday. After Sunday morning, things start to calm down. So I say later mid-morning into the early afternoon, things are going to be looking much better, very similar to the conditions that we have right now. But again, even with the conditions that we have right now, we see what can happen. Again, these fires just have a mind of their own, and they are capable of creating these weather systems where it kind of just gets out of control and they just go in different wind speeds and wind directions, even though the wind speeds are looking very light right now, anywhere again between 5 to 15 miles per hour. And tomorrow morning around this time, same thing, 5 to 15 miles per hour. Let's really hope that we don't see anything tomorrow morning like what we are seeing right now. Really just hoping and praying for that. But as we go into tomorrow, you can see those wind speeds relatively calm. But as we head into Monday, look at all the color that's just popped up on this map. This is the next Santa Ana wind event that we are forecasting. So this Santa Ana wind event, it's not looking as strong as the one that we just had, but you can see again, those purples, the reds, the orange, they are making a comeback Monday afternoon. And Monday afternoon into Wednesday, that's when we can see those gusty northeasterly winds sticking with us. Again, fire weather just at the highest, especially with these low relative humidity levels. Look at the airport. You can still see that plume of smoke from our LAX cam. It's really scary and just ominous seeing those conditions again from these different cameras that we have around town too. And here's a look at the air quality really quick. We have those moderate levels, but of course near the fires, we see those red zones really starting to increase. So not a good sign when we start to see again those spot fires, those flare-ups. And with these wind speeds, it's really sad that whenever we do have these low wind speeds, it's great for the firefighters. They're able to tackle the fires and get a good grip on it. But again, the fire is very unpredictable. They have a mind of their own. These things can happen. So of course, we are keeping our eyes on it. We're looking at the wind speeds, the wind directions, and anything else that pops up. We have Air 7, so we have a good eye in the sky on it. Mark, eyes again in the sky. Mark and Irene, I'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, Niku, we're really hoping that with those higher wind speeds Monday through Wednesday that we don't see things worsen for these fires out there. But thank you for keeping an eye on things. And again, we are watching all of this from the sky in Air 7. We've been watching these flames inch closer and closer to this community here in Brentwood. We also do want to go to our reporter who is on the ground in Mandeville Canyon, Monica Deanda. She has been there live throughout the morning. And Monica, you have been mentioning that you're seeing better conditions compared to a few days ago or even overnight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the wind is a huge factor, right? It's really been non-existent so far this morning, and that's a huge help for firefighters who are trying to gain the upper hand here. We know they've made some progress. The fire is now 11% contained, but we did see that fire overnight move northeast, and that was what became concerning, especially for the Brentwood and Encino community. So take a look here behind me. This is Mandeville Canyon that separates us from where we're at, but you can see those flames there all across the hillside across from us, and there are some portions where they made progress. We've seen water drops throughout here in the morning, but there are other spots that are picking up now, and you can see some of those that we're giving you a look at. But overall, I would say conditions out here looking favorable in terms of the wind, not much of a factor, but there is still a lot of smoke in this area. That's why I still have my mask on. And then actually we're gonna go on over here and try to give you guys a look at this sheep that they look like someone's gonna try and rescue this animal. Oh, we got scared, it's running away. But you could see we believe it's a sheep. They're just hiding behind the bush. But as that person in orange got closer, it kind of ran away. It's getting a little scared, poor thing. Obviously, we know a lot of animals have been affected as well, and that's just giving you a look at one of them. They're pretty far away from the flames right now, but it seems like someone's going to try and rescue that little sheep. We'll see if they're able to get it some help. But that just gives you a look at, it's people that are affected, but also animals like this little guy here that we see, and they're going to go ahead and move in there and try and see if they can. Not sure who they are with, but looks like they're trying to maybe get a little closer. Not sure there. But going back to the fire, a lot of smoke still in this air, and there are some parts that are picking up. We didn't really see fire earlier in certain places along the hillside across from us, but this is an area that people are looking at closely, because if it happened to jump this way across from Mandeville Canyon, there are a lot of homes all around here where we're standing. So that is why a lot of people got an evacuation warning yesterday. So remember, if you are living in these areas, Encino, Brentwood, let's go back out and show you guys. Have your go bag ready. Here goes the sheep. Here it is. So seems like they got a hold of the little guy. Going to try and rescue this sheep to make sure that they are safe. And you can see them there being gentle. And they're going to move it and just go ahead and help that little guy out. Make sure that they are safe, right? Because we've seen a lot of, unfortunately,